Welcome back to Call the Damn Leads, the show by sales professionals for sales professionals. I'm your host, Drewbie Wilson. With more than 2 decades in sales, I've seen it, been through it, heard about it. Now I'm bringing it to you, my favorite people in the world, the sales community. Because let's be honest, this is the greatest job on earth. Doesn't matter where you come from, what background, what personality type, you can carve out an amazing life in sales. Now, today's guest is no stranger to the journey. I know he's got quite a few things he's going to share with us today. I'd like to welcome my friend, Mr. Dale Kershner.
Welcome. I'm happy to be here. I'm honored to be here. This is going to be fun.
I'm excited for you, and I want to jump right in. I know you've got some years of experience in the game, so what's a crazy sales story for us?
Let's see. Okay, so I think the most rude awakening story that I can share is when I was starting out many years ago. I was working for a company and I was selling computerized fire detection systems to lumber mills, which is
Okay.
not a typical one, but hey, it was out there. I remember having my blazer jacket, my tie and shirt and slacks, and driving up to the security gate at Willamette Industries. And this is in Oregon, just for people who need to know that. I drove up to the gate, and the security guard steps out, comes to check my credentials, and looks at me, and he said, "So what are you here for?" And I said, "Well, I'm meeting with the plant manager, and we're going to discuss fire detection systems." And he said, "No." Well, what do you mean no? I said, I should be on the schedule. And he said, no, you can't meet him looking like that. I said, I don't understand. He said, look, he's going to kick you out of his office within 10 seconds of just looking at you. Tie? No way. Jacket? Forget it. Slacks? You must be kidding me. We're a lumber mill. So I go, oh, okay. Well, could you please let him know I'm going to be late because I have to drive into town and buy new clothes? And so he said, yeah, I'll let him know. And so I drove into town, found a Western store, and grabbed myself a pair of Levi's and a flannel shirt and, got redressed, went back to the mill. He said, yeah, that'll work. He said, it's a little crisp, but yeah, I think we could overlook that. So I go in there, had a great conversation with the guy, sold him the system. It all went great, but really got an education instantly in you have to be appropriate for your audience in every possible way. That was also when I had to learn to use expletives in my sales pitch, or he couldn't understand what I was saying.
Dale, this is why I love sales, because it will literally test every ounce of you, from the way that you move, the way that you groove. And what's great is that, again, you're going to find what you're willing to subject yourself to in order to get a deal done.
Right?
And what I think is so fun about this is that, I mean, I'm covered in tattoos, have been since I was a little guy. People told me my whole life, yeah, I see you got some sleeves too, so like you get it. But that first impression, it does matter.
It does.
And often it's not that you're not put together as a professional, you're just selling to the wrong audience.
Right.
And so how, as you went through that experience and then you continued on in your journey, like how did you use that rude awakening going forward? Did you start preparing yourself? Did you start doing customer avatars? Like what'd you do from there?
It was interesting. This would have been long before avatars even existed. So what I learned from that experience was essentially don't assume anything. I had read up and I knew what a professional salesperson looked like, and I had dressed exactly like a professional salesperson. But this led me to understand and do research every time I had a new significant client. When I was flying to China to work with some people in the government in China and do some sales over there, I read this thick book before and on my way over there to find out what the cultural significance and differences were in China versus Japan, where I'd already done some work, and versus Korea, where I'd already done some work. So I had to know my audience, and it made all the difference. Walking into China, I knew that they never negotiate about the actual issue that they're concerned about. They always negotiate about the shiny thing over here and then spring that on you at the very end of the negotiation, hoping to keep you off balance. So that was useful. Knowing that they don't like Japanese people largely meant that I wasn't going to bring up my experience in Japan when I was talking to the people in China. So yeah, I think it opened my eyes right out of the gate to know your client, know know the basics of people in their industry doing their thing from their generation, and work with that. At least start there, and then you'll learn more things. You sit down in the office, you see the picture of the golf trophies, or the kids at home, or whatever it is, right? And then you pick up that additional thing so that you can have that much more relatedness.
Yeah, I love that. And it's one of those things where jargon can be a blessing and a curse. When you understand people, you can kind of speak their language, and you can use terms and phrases that make them feel like, okay, you know what, Dale gets it. This is a
Yeah,
guy, he's in my lane, he plays in this field, he's clearly an expert. And also, sales professionals can be really bad about using the sales jargon from an internal standpoint during a conversation, and it's a really bad habit
it
because
is.
we're all great at, like, we know our stuff inside, we are the experts at our product or service. And also the bad habit of telling people in zero idea of what you do, what you like, you're using that jargon. So how do you like break those bad habits, like when you're so used to getting into the flow of using it, but then also not falling prey to it yourself?
Um, I've now studied language and its
Mm.
impact on uh, basically communication with other people. And of course, that's all sales comes down to, is effective communication. So the first thing I do is I listen distinctly to how they speak. They will talk in words like, well, I feel like this is the way this goes. Oh, great. Okay. This is a feelings person. I can deal with them by using feelings words. So more emotional content words than logical, mathematical, linear words. So I make that adjustment during the conversation. The other thing I do is I use language to portray myself in my desired method. Um, uh, you'll hear people, like I just did there, who use empty rejoinders and things like that during their communication. People will start saying, well, kind of this, or so what I was going to do, or at the end of every sentence, they'll say, right. And all of those are indicators of a lack of confidence inside that person, either with the topic that they're talking about or that person in general.
Mm.
So I work diligently to first notice anytime I use those. And of course, I coach other people to do this work as well, to notice when they're doing it, interrupt the behavior, and then replace it with something else. And the shift in just perceived confidence, not even actual confidence, is dramatic when you drop all of those things out of your conversation and just say the words you intend to say.
Mm. I love this, and I want to go deeper with it because this is something I too have studied. As a sales professional, you realize at a certain point it really just takes two things. You have to have empathy and confidence. Like, can I genuinely care about this person enough to listen to what
Yes.
they have to say and be confident that our product or service can help them? The
Yep.
rest of it is communication.
Yep.
And I love how you had mentioned, oh, they used a word like feel. Oh, great. They're an emotions based person. They like feelings. Great.
There you
You
go.
can take it a step further, and some people have to think about it. Some people want to see the document. Hey, can
Yes.
you tell me more? You can
Right.
listen, and people will literally tell you, are they more like a visual person? Do they like the logic based type information? Are they someone who just gets into the vibe or it's so many layers to the communication aspect. And when you become
Yes.
an expert at it, you start learning how to run the same script and process that you would normally, and then layer in those different types of communication. How did you how was that discovery for you? How did you decide, like, I'm going to go deep on studying this terminology and language barriers?
It came. I'm hungry to know things in general. So it's not hard for me to push a little further and dig a little deeper. The human animal always has been the most intriguing thing for me. When I
Mm,
started out in sales, it was because, well, I need to win at this game. So I need to understand people to the point where, you know, even if I don't feel confident, they have to feel I feel confident.
mm,
And I have to be able to relate to them. You know, if I hate golf, I have to know enough about golf to talk golf because they have a golfing trophy on their desk. That's just the rules. And so I would learn as much about as many different things, or at least enough about as many different things. I don't care about the Final Four in college basketball, but I learned about the Final Four, especially since I was in the city where that was going to be held, and I knew that might be part of the conversation. So I had to know the teams that were playing, that whole thing. And and then that it's simple. Oh, is that your daughter? She's lovely, and that's easy. But when it comes down to studying, I don't know if there's a couple, a dozen, or a million different communication styles. I think everyone uniquely has one, but you can listen for categories, like you mentioned, right? The feelings versus the logical linear person. And there are word choices or structural giveaways, things like that, that'll let you know, oh, this is mostly who I'm talking to.
mm.
So I went and I studied. My degree is in rhetoric and communication. So, we started there. Um, I was captain of the debate team, so I had to learn how to not only understand the other person's language, but use it against them. So that was helpful. And then I just jumped into like behaviorism, um, human responses, different languages from the standpoint of actual different languages from different nationalities and their structures. And out of all of that, I guess, pulled out my own theory of language and communication. And then spent the last 43 years honing that and utilizing it and failing at it and then succeeding at it and
Well, isn't
until
that's the whole
something works.
cycle though? You got to fail at it so that you can get better at it.
Yeah,
And one of the things that I find so interesting, especially from perspective of sales, which, let's just be honest, you guys. Well, this is a sales show, and I know a lot of you that are listeners are professionals and entrepreneurs, but this applies in your personal life as well.
it's
Communication,
all sales.
persuasiveness, it's all sales. Your
It's
kids
all,
convincing you to let them have the snack at night, that's sales. Your
oh,
wife
and there
convincing you
too.
to do the thing to get the dog, sales.
Yep.
And so what I would love to know, as you kind of had mentioned about like behavior modification, and how did you learn to layer in the communication with
Hmm.
the behavior modification? Because from sales perspective, like my seat, I'm seeing here thinking, well, if I communicate this clearly, I'm going to convince someone to change their behaviors
Yeah.
and do something that maybe is out of their comfort zone. So, like, please, I'd love to know the expertise on this, because I'm a newbie in this world. Dale, break it down for me.
Gotcha. I think we're all newbies in the world. Thank goodness for that. Um, I think there's long-term behavior modification, like taking a habitual behavior and turning it into a different habitual behavior.
Hmm.
And then there's in the moment shifting someone's perspective, belief system, whatever it is, to move them in the direction that you want them to go. So in the long term, when my training goes like this, first you notice. Literally, I'll give you the tool in about 5 minutes. So you walk around with a Post-it note and a pen or a pencil. And every time you see yourself doing the behavior you wish to modify, you make a little mark on the paper. That's it. Don't do anything about it. Don't shift it. Don't do anything. Just make the mark. And then at the end of the day, transfer the number of marks to your journal so that you have a total per day number. And do nothing about the number. It doesn't mean anything. It's training you to notice your behavior you want to modify. Because mostly we don't see the ones we want to modify.
Sure.
So the second stage is then after you've done that for at least 7 days, then you first notice, make your mark, and then you interrupt. So you do something physical, snap your fingers, touch your ear, touch the inside of your other wrist, something physical, which interrupts the behavior pattern the way it was going to go. And that all comes from a study in neuroplasticity and how the brain works and retraining synapse firing and all that. But that's the short and sweet of it.
That's the nerdy stuff that we love that we could probably talk about forever. But sorry,
forever.
Go ahead.
Yeah, trust me. But you do that. You do something physical, and that interrupts the flow. So your brain is now sitting there going, "What? What are we doing?" And then the next thing you do is you take 3 deep cleansing breaths, which just empties the space out and gives you literal a vacuum to fill with something. And then in that moment, you take your desired new behavior and substitute it for the one you're correcting. And you do that then 10,000 times. At the end of 10,000 times, you have a new behavior.
As someone who was very overweight as a young man and has learned to retrain myself to understand that it is the reps that create the result.
Always.
There is no way around it. Anyone who has ever achieved anything of significance had to put in the reps. And even if you look at the people that you think, oh, well, they were overnight celebrities, they did this thing, and they just they were doing reps of something that got them to where the thing that they did made them successful. I promise
Absolutely.
you. And it's, as you said, it's modification over time. Go ahead.
It's how we got the bad habit in the first place. We repeated it over and over and over and over and over and over and over until it was our new habit. We just started when we were 3 years old, so we're really good at them now. And it takes a minute to undo that work.
Oh, and would you say there are habits that we have that we don't even realize are habits?
Absolutely. When I mentioned, like earlier, when I talked about the kinda in people's language, nobody, when I first tell it to them, I hear it every time someone says it. And I'll mention it to a potential or a new client, and I'll say, hey, look, do you recognize you're saying kind of? I said, what? No, I'm not. I said, okay. Now you'll hear it. Before you wouldn't, but now you'll hear it. You say it all the time. And all it tells me is that there's something you're not confident about. That's it. But I think people have habits they don't know at all.
Well, and this is great because awareness, right? Mm-hmm. That you opened a loop earlier on, hey, awareness. Yep. First step is making people aware of the situation. Yep. Okay, so once they're aware, where do we go from there?
Then the awareness is the making the marks on the piece of paper. Okay. Now, in the shorter term, let's see, I want to answer both questions, even though I made up the second one. From the awareness, then you do the intended interruption and modification. Okay. So you have to see it before you can do anything with it.
Okay.
And as soon as you can see it and you've trained yourself to now see it, then you can modify it any way you want and create any new behavior structure. And then the other question that I made up you're asking is, how do you do that with someone instantaneously, like in a sales appointment? And the only way, because of course we don't have 10,000 reps to work with here, the only way we can do that is to constantly disrupt their normal flow of either communication, understanding, knowledge, whatever it is, and do so in a a dramatic but not offensive way. Anyone can disrupt anyone and piss them off instantly.
Mm.
The point here is to have them see a new way to think without them going, well, wait a second, I'm not okay with that. So I do things like I change the tempo of my speech. Like I'm going along at a certain rhythm, and then every once in a while I just do this inappropriate pause in the middle of what I'm saying, and it just catches their attention, and they have to deal with something just happened here. Another one is to use unusual words, meanings, and so forth for what they normally expect. Let's see, using the golf example before, you're talking about golf, you're building a relationship with them over golf, and then you say, and I got to let you know, I hate golf. I just hate it. I've done it. I can get the ball down the fairway, but I hate golf. It makes my brain numb. So, and I get that you might love it and it's wonderful and it fulfills something in you, but I just needed to let you know that it's not my favorite thing in the world. Whether it is or not plays with their brain because they expected me to constantly say positive related things, and I'm not doing that all of a sudden. But I'm also not doing it in a way that will upset them.
I love that, and what makes me, when I love these conversations, Dale, and why I do this show is because it always makes me think a little deeper. Every perspective, every new thing, it really makes me think about. Like for me, I appreciate what you said, and also I would encourage people to remember that part of this is we're transferring confidence.
Yes.
So because we don't have the time to get them 10,000 reps, we have to make them feel like if they jump out of this airplane with this parachute on, it's going to open and everything's going to go well.
Yep.
When everything in their mind is saying like,
let's
why
not
the heck are you going to jump out of an airplane right now? Dale, that's a crazy idea.
Yeah.
But it's the ability to communicate and then make sure that confidence is 100% in place so that they will change the behavior in the moment, which is typically making a decision. And that is a skill set that people have to develop to make a decision.
Yes. And even though I've talked about ways to pretend to be confident, the ultimate sex appeal, and we were talking about earlier, selling your wife on becoming your wife, selling your kids on no, they don't need a pony, selling anybody on anything, has to start with them feeling you are supremely confident in your product, in yourself, in the solutions this will provide, whatever it is. If that doesn't come to the conversation, stop wasting your time.
On that note, Dale, time is the most valuable thing we have, and I want to be respectful of yours because I'm sure we could sit here and literally I know you and I can nerd out on this for like the next 6-7 hours, and
at least
out of your respect for your time, what's the easiest way for me and the listeners to come learn more about you and listen? I'm sure you have some other content out there. How do we come find you?
The easiest way, like I've set up, one of these Calendly systems where anybody can book 30 minutes, a free coaching call with me anytime they want.
Awesome.
So the easiest way is go to my website, which is difficult. Everybody pay attention. DaleKershner.com. Right. And over there, then there's the place where you can book yourself a 30-minute thing with me. We get on the phone and decide whether or not it works. If I don't work for you, that's great. Then let's get that taken care of right away in 30 minutes. And then we can decide whether there's something to do beyond that.
I love that. Well, we'll definitely make sure we put all your links and everything down in the show notes because I'm sure I'm going to be going and looking for other shows that you've been on as a guest because you've been an amazing guest today. So I know there's plenty of other awesome conversations and topics that you've shared. And that's the thing, right? If you've listened to this episode and you got value out of it, you thought, hey, I really enjoyed this time, share it with a friend, share it with a colleague, someone that you know who might also enjoy the conversation because Dale and I, we really pour our time, energy, and effort into this because we know it will be valuable. We know it will help someone, maybe even you, make that change, to modify the behaviors that you're doing so that you'll have more success. And so, Dale, I can't say how much I appreciate your time again today, man. It's been an honor.
Totally my honor. Totally honor. You've been great. I love the conversation. I always love the conversation, but thanks for the opportunity.
You got it. Well, hey, if you're listening and you have a story to tell, you want to be on the show, head over to callthedamnleads.com/podcast. Send us your info. Tell us what you got going on. We'd love to get your story out there because, again, this is the greatest career job opportunity on the planet. As long as you're willing to do the work, as long as you're willing to call the damn leads. Y'all know what to do. Go call those damn leads. We'll see you on the next one.